That's why you have a green cup. I'm home in my pajamas.
Front row? You see what it's like? Huh? You see anywhere else? Yeah, over there. Maybe the second row. Front row?
Can't forget.
Like that. We must be a burning here. I would really rather sit over there so I can just kind of look at the people. You too? Okay, we're gonna move.
I guess there's two things. The guy, realities of the world is Rania.
No, you are correct.
George's mic does not work.
Good evening. Welcome to the meeting of the Skokie Village Board for Monday, December the 18th, 2023. This evening, we will be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by our village clerk, Pramod Shah. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The meeting will come to order, and the clerk will please call the roll.
Trustee Sutker,
Here.
Trustee Robinson,
Here.
Trustee Kuhn,
Here.
Trustee Johnson,
Here.
Trustee Pure Slovin,
Here.
Trustee Klein,
Here.
Mayor Windusen.
Here. We have a quorum. Next item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda for this evening's meeting. A motion is in order. Trustee Pierce Slovin, seconded by Trustee Johnson. Is there anything on the consent agenda anybody wants moved? Yes.
I just want to remove the section of item 4 related to the approval of our closed session minutes.
Okay. Is there anything else? If not, call the roll, please.
Trustee Sutker,
Aye.
Trustee Robinson, Trustee Kuhn,
Aye.
Trustee Johnson,
Aye.
Trustee Pure Slovin,
Aye.
Trustee Klein, Mayor Windusen.
Aye, the motion passes.
For this item about our closed session minutes, I just want to say I'm really glad that we're going to fully comply with the AG's recent binding determination about our open meetings violations. I do want to ask, I think we still need to figure out what we're going to do to correctly approve our closed session minutes from before June. And I think we also, there's this lingering question of how we are going to approve our closed session minutes moving forward. So first let me ask, how are we going to retroactively approve our closed session minutes from before June?
The AG didn't comment on that, so I think we have to assume that everything is in compliance up to the meeting in the question about the June 5th. The Attorney General has not opined on anything before that. It is something that the municipalities are in fact looking into. I was talking to an attorney recently who has several municipalities, and it seems to be the consensus that going forward, the Attorney General's opinion is the precedent. But up until then, there is no consensus. So we will probably second meeting of January or one of the meetings in February, take up the closed session minutes. And at that point, I think maybe we'll have a clearer idea of the implications of the Attorney General's decision.
Okay. During that closed session, I really hope that we can have a good discussion as a board about how we're going to approve closed session minutes moving forward, just so we can have a better process.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is a proclamation, in a sense honoring and also hopefully calling attention to the good work that our township is doing with its food pantry. And I would like to read the proclamation. I think it's self-explanatory. Whereas the Niles Township Food Pantry initially started out in the basement of the Niles Township building at 5255 Lincoln in Skokie, with a shelf containing some canned goods, just in case someone was in need. It then grew to the back room of the township's building with one full-time employee. And whereas in 2009, in the midst of the Great Recession, Niles Township reestablished the food pantry in their annex building at 8341 Lockwood, the former site of a daycare facility. And whereas in 2022, the food pantry served some 3,000 separate households, about 8% of all households in Niles Township, as many families rely on the pantry on a regular basis, and even more so during these difficult times. In 2022, the pantry distributed just under 1.7 million pounds of food, where about half of all households in our coverage area use food stamps. And whereas there continues to be a profound demand for emergency food due to multiple factors leading to a challenging economy and to the demand to operate food banks, like the Niles Township Food Bank, is all the more critical than ever. And whereas the pantry continues to provide meaningful volunteer service and in-pantry shopping for those who are food insecure. And whereas the Niles Township Food Pantry Foundation is collecting monetary donations this year to purchase holiday gift cards so children from families in need can enjoy the upcoming holidays. And in 2022, more than 1,000 children were able to receive gifts because of this drive. And whereas the food pantry is run and supported by the Niles Township government, and whereas food and other services provided to food pantry clients are paid for out of the Niles Township Food Pantry Foundation, a 501c3 charitable corporation. Now therefore, I, George Van Dusen, Mayor of the Village of Skokie, do hereby proclaim the month of December 2023 as Niles Township Food Pantry Awareness Month. And in the Village of Skokie, urge all residents to support the efforts of the Food Pantry Foundation by making a monetary donation to the Food Pantry Holiday Gift Card Drive, and by donating, whenever possible, toiletry items and non-perishable food goods. And I'd like to introduce Trustee Mark Collins of the Township, who is a moving force behind the food pantry, and Mike Isaacs, who is also an administrator with the Township.
I've been asked to say a couple of words, and I always have a couple of words. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mark Collins. I am representing you as trustee of Niles Township Government, and the food pantry is my baby, and it has been for over 14 years. And I find myself getting emotional every time I'm talking about it because it is my food pantry in our village. Our village is in great need. You may not see it, but your neighbor may be visiting our food pantry. Somebody down the street definitely is visiting our food pantry. And there's hundreds and hundreds, thousands of people in our village that are visiting our food pantry. There's a million stories at the food pantry, and I could share them all, but the one that strikes me the most was seeing a woman in line with 2 kids, and people were complaining about the smell coming from her kids. Well, in short order, we took her, and she said she didn't have any diapers or anything. We happened to have a couple of diapers, and we took her into another room. And we noticed that she had diapered her children in garbage bags and toilet paper. Garbage bags and toilet paper. That exists. That is out there. There's a million other stories that I could tell you too that would put a smile on everybody's face in here. The camaraderie there. The people that I see that go to our food pantry, who I see on the street, and they say thank you. Who I see at a grocery store, and they say thank you. And when they're thanking me, they're thanking you. Because there's a proverb, it takes a village. And you folks in this village, all of you, have stood up and taken care of our own. And beyond that, you have taken care of people during pandemic who don't even live here. We did it. So I call it my food pantry. I want you all to call it my food pantry yourself. If you give me 1 can, if you give me $1, that's one more than I had before. And we take care of our own. So thank you folks for all that you have done up here. I appreciate every last one of you, and I appreciate all of you because it does take a village. We are the village. We are neighbors. We are we. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would also like to just bring to everybody's attention, this past week, the village received a very noteworthy award by an environmental group and by the Metro Mayor's Caucus. Out of 275 municipalities, Skokie was one of 10 that was honored for its work in electrical vehicle readiness. And I want to single out Max Slankard, who is our Director of Public Works, our Village Manager, John Lockerbie, and particularly Eric Sanchez, our Transportation Engineer, Elizabeth Zimmerman, who is our Assistant to the Public Works Director, Brad Magee, the Operations Manager, and Lisa Sanzenbacher, our Sustainability Coordinator, for all of the hard work and dedication it took for them to bring attention to this a very important subject. As many of you may be aware, we've passed an 8-year sustainability program, and awards like this recognize that we are moving forward with that program. And I want to thank the staff for the tremendous effort it took. We're just now beginning to look at electricity in our vehicles. And it's good to know that our staff is on the cutting edge of being an example for all these other municipalities within the Metro Mayor's Caucus for everything that they've done. So, John, please convey our congratulations to the staff and thank them for their good efforts.
Will do. Thank you very much.
And I'm sure that's why everybody is here this evening. The next item on the agenda is a report of our Plan Commission. Paul Luke, Chairman, with Johanna Knighton. Paul, just give me 1 second. Just so everybody is aware, Mr. Luke will deliver the Plan Commission's report with its recommendations. Then I will call on the petitioner to make a presentation. After that, anybody who wishes to comment will be given 3 minutes to come to the podium and to address your concerns, whether it is in favor, whether it's in opposition, or want to suggest modifications to the program that's being suggested this evening. After that, the village board will then take a vote. So Mr. Luke will deliver his report. I will ask for a motion, and once we have a motion on the subdivision or the zoning map amendment would be the first one, then the
Good evening, Mayor,
board
members
will
of the
ask
board.
questions.
Tonight, since we do have 3 cases tonight before the board, I'm going to present all 3 cases in my summary here. So, Lutz and Associates Number 1 LLC presented a request for a zoning map amendment in case 2023-15P, a subdivision request in case 2023-16P, and a site plan approval in case 2023-17P. At 2 meetings of the Plan Commission on August 3rd and September 7th to construct 68 townhome residences. In addition to the Plan Commission meeting, the petitioner met with the neighborhood at 3 separate meetings and attended the Appearance Commission and obtained a certificate of appropriateness. The property is 96,397 square feet of property located in an R4 multifamily in an R1 single-family district. The property is currently used as a private school. The property has frontage along Kenton and Kilpatrick Avenues and Main Street. The property is surrounded by both R4, R1, and R2 districts. Again, in case 2023, the petitioner is seeking to change the zoning half of the rear portion of the property containing land zoned as R1 to R4. The Plan Commission recommends unanimously by vote of 9 ayes that the zoning change be approved by the board. In case 2023, the petitioner is seeking a subdivision to re-subdivide 2 lots into 1 new lot and a dedicated portion of the right-of-way that is 33 feet by 165 feet to create a consistent 66-foot right-of-way along Kenton Avenue. The commission recommended unanimously on a vote of 9 ayes that this request be approved. In case 2023-17P, the petitioner is seeking a site plan approval to construct 68 townhomes, 158 surface parking spaces with stormwater detention at 4600 Main Street. The Plan Commission recommends the board by unanimous vote that this site plan be approved. In response to concerns regarding the building setbacks, the petitioner agreed to increase the rear setback from the required 30 feet to 40 feet. The front setback was increased from 25 feet from the required 20 feet. The petitioner also agreed to place deed restrictions on the parcel to restrict uses after rezoning R1 to R4. Specifically, this would not allow standalone parking as a principal use, assisted living services, skilled nursing facilities, and multifamily housing. Also, in support of affordable housing, the developer has agreed to the following village's draft of inclusionary housing ordinance. As you all recall, the project had started last year prior to the consideration of an inclusionary housing ordinance. The developer plans to make a payment in fee in lieu of 5% of the units at $150,000 each. This is approximately 3.4 units and is therefore a total of $450,000 in payment. The Plan Commission, during its September proceedings, recommended approving relief for the project because it would exceed the 65% permeability. Since that meeting, the developer has made additional modifications to the site plan. It is no longer seeking relief from the 65% permeability requirement. I remind the board that all three separate cases have to be voted on separately. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Gershon, do you wish to make some comments?
Well, it was working before we started.
This was, of course, working 5 minutes before the board meeting started. I'll give it another couple seconds. We provided you with a copy of the PowerPoint because I get laughed at all the time by the fact that I never trust systems to work, so therefore I always bring hard copies. I'm going to start. Hopefully we'll be able to get this up and running, but if not, is it working now? Great, thank you. Again, our pleasure to be before this board. Let me get this to full screen. As he always does, the Plan Commission Chair has done a great job of giving a summary of the project. This project's rather unique. It started almost 2 years ago with the village. We've spent a lot of time with the properties, as you will see. Probably in my 35-plus years of practicing, has the greatest reductions in the project and greatest number of changes that have been worked out between the developer, the community, the Plan Commission, the Appearance Commission, and the staff. And we're very proud to be back before you today. With me today is the developer, Barry Seidel with Luz and Associates, Mike DeRuin, who's going to be presenting with me with Fitzgerald Associates, our architects, along with a number of his colleagues. And while he will not be presenting, Louis Abuna from KLOA, who I know you all know, in the event there are any questions about traffic or parking. Just some quick background on who's here with you today. A number of you have met or know Barry Seidel with Luz and Associates, but from the start of his business career decades ago, he has been a part of this community. His first business venture was a little hot dog joint called Corner Hut, which many of you know, and I remember at Oakton and Skokie Boulevard. And all the way from there to earlier this year, the transportation-oriented apartment project unanimously approved by this board at 8610 Niles Center Road, adjacent to Skokie Swift. In between those times, he became a well-known financial expert with 15 years at Heitman Mortgage and his own company, Basic Financial. As a developer, he acquired and retrofitted almost 5,000 residential units, rehabilitated over 500,000 square feet of retail, and as you can see on this project, He both co-ventured the Gold Coast Galleria, which was a mixed-use residential, which is a mixed-use residential and retail building featuring Dave and Buster's, many of you may know, in Chicago, and also converted 613 residential units in Washington, D.C. with Jupiter Corporation and Jerry Wexler. His commitment to this project, in my mind, is rather unique, and I think it's sort of what I always like to see in clients, what you believe as a community like to see, which is that from his commitment to sustainability, and a reminder this project was done before you even had a proposed sustainability ordinance, he made this commitment to build a sustainable project, which Mike will be talking about, and to his willingness to expend a great deal of time, effort, and cost to try to work to address some of the issues raised by the community and by the staff. Do you feel, I don't want to press that. Good, down, okay. So just get a sense of how we got here. Again, since February of 2022, and obviously we were looking at the property before that, but that's sort of when we started project due diligence. Since then, a great deal of work with staff, 4 appearance commission meetings, 2 plan commission meetings, and 3 community meetings brought us to where we are today. And I want to take the opportunity, I think many people know that there's been a lot of discussion of this project, a lot of work on it. I really do want to compliment your staff, your appearance commission, your plan commission, and those members of the community who chose to be a part of the process and to help us by giving us what their concerns were and are addressing when we can. This was not easily earned, that unanimous recommendation of approval by the Plan Commission or unanimous approval by the Appearance Commission. As you can imagine from the number of meetings there. In addition to all those meetings, we also had numerous meetings and calls with other members of the community and with your staff. To sort of eke out where we were on that, and we'll go into more details. A lot of this is to give you a sense of what's going on to bring us here today. But that project that we started off with in June, which was a 5-story apartment buildings and townhomes, designed and submitted in accordance with your ordinances. After we heard hours of testimony and hours of discussion with the Appearance Commission, we went back and tried to find out how and if we could make this an economically viable project, and try to address some of those issues. Literally went through a full design process in a 5-story building, then a 4-story building, then a 3-story building, each time working with your staff on those designs, each time with our architectural team, with our engineers, to see whether we can make that work. And a lot of give and take with the owner of the property. Barry Crown has been a part of this community for 50 years. After both the developer and the seller agreed to lose some of the economic value of the project, we turned it into an all-town home development, worked with the staff to make sure we met your requirements to do that, and presented it to the community at our first meeting. It obviously would have been easier to walk into that first community meeting with a 5-story building and then miraculously come in the next week with our approval of an all-town home development, but we're a pretty straightforward group, and we couldn't do that without knowing that it worked. And once we knew that it worked, we wanted to be straightforward and bring in what we had there. I think that that project, as a result, caused the Plan Commission to unanimously recommend approval of this project. We had individual community meetings since then, which I'll walk through, where we talked about the appearance and had the community, again, rather uniquely, help us to design the exterior appearance of the buildings. And after 2 appearance commission meetings, we resulted in a project which certainly was a mix of both the community's desires on that, some very strong recommendations from the appearance commission, as you'll see, and all of which led to the unanimous recommendation of approval from the appearance commission. So just to give you, and I'm going to go through these quickly, just to give you some sense of the project, originally 158 units, 2 5-story apartment buildings, 38 townhomes, a density of 40.3 units per acre. By the way, at that point, still lower in density than the surrounding multifamily projects near us, and allowable with rezoning of the project as we talked. Even at that point, we met all traffic requirements and met all the village's parking requirements. Staff did a significant review, as you know, from of this project, and recommended approval that we had met all your requirements. Appearance Commission wanted us to be continued for additional testimony information, and the community was very clear. They wanted to see a reduction in the height and density, more open space, and a reduction in roadway impacts on Kilpatrick and Kenton Avenue. Additionally, there are concerns about the number of townhomes facing single-family homes to the north. So we went back, we reduced the number of townhomes facing the north. Originally 26 townhomes facing those 8 homes to the north. We reduced it from 26 to 8 homes, 8 townhomes, actually less than the number of homes they face. Similarly, we reduced those original 4 curb cuts down to just 2 curb cuts to reduce the impact on the roads to the east and the west of the community. And again, as was mentioned by the staff, and we'll get into, that's notwithstanding the fact that this is a dramatic reduction from the current, the impact of the school on those roadways. Again, this project once again continues to meet all of your requirements. Appearance Commission asked us to try to further reduce the massing and to meet with the community. Community once again expressed their desire for reductions in height, density, and more open space, and made it clear, some of them, that they did not accept the village's or the national standards on traffic and parking concerns. So rather than going through all those different plans we submitted, as I discussed before, we spent almost, I think, a little more than 5 months working with designers, with the village staff, trying to meet all of those requests and requirements, going from that 4-story building to the 3-story building. Each time a larger reduction in the number of units, the number that were there, and really came to a heart-to-heart and recognized that we weren't sure that any multifamily project here was going to be appreciated by the community, even though we're surrounded by multifamily homes to the south. And we decided to eliminate all multifamily buildings here. Clearly an economic impact on us. Could only have happened because the seller was also willing to take some of that hit. We limited the projects to townhomes only. So the project that we presented, as I said, removed all multifamily. This is what was presented to the Planning Commission in September. Also presented at that first community meeting. We reduced the total units from 158 to 68. We reduced the density from 40.3 to 17.3 units per acre. Again, recognizing that many of our surrounding projects, multifamily projects, are at 50 units per acre or more. Dropped the height from 60 feet down to 32 feet. And as the chair said, one of the issues that was raised was a concern that if this was rezoned, that in that R1 section you could have multifamily, you could have the other use that allowed in R4. So we voluntarily offered to put a deed restriction on the property that would not allow any use in R4 that's not allowed in R1 on that R1 portion. We also reduced the impervious surfaces, although by putting in the impervious pavers, you see them in the sort of light brown there. We were still at that point, as we said, needing a zoning waiver to allow us to have the amount of impervious surface that was there. We also, and I'm going to let Mike discuss this one, also made some changes to the electrical vehicle amenities on the site, and again, still met all the traffic and parking requirements. And by the way, with another request is for us to modify the height of the fence, which we did from 5 feet to 6 feet. Staff recommended approval, and we're very proud that the Plan Commission unanimously recommended approval of the entire project. We then went back to the Appearance Commission, because in those initial Appearance Commission meetings, it was clear that the real issues there were, initial issues were the massing and the density. So we went back, after we had modified that density, if we had the Plan Commission's recommendation on it, we made some, as I mentioned at that second community meeting, we had literally walked through with them and said, here's what the elevations look like. We've already dropped this as far as we can drop it. Again, more than any project I'm aware of in my history in Skokie, that 57% drop. But clearly, we're open to looking at other methods of doing the elevations. We walked through, got lots of recommendations of what people liked, what they didn't like, how they wanted to see it changed. We also increased the open space, which was one of the requests, by removing the clubhouse, that's in the green area there in the middle. Walked through how we had done the impervious surface areas, reduced the paved areas, and confirmed the quality of the fencing and lighting on the property. As a result of all those changes, we brought those revised elevations, which Mike will show you, into the Appearance Commission. We also brought in, because as everyone does, we worked with your staff. They had some of their own vision for it. We had, and they knew the community's vision for it. And when the Appearance Commission saw them, they asked us to see what we had actually discussed with the community. They liked a lot of those changes, reinstated a number of them, and added a number of their own, which Mike will talk about. And that's why we've got some of these pallets here in front of you with materials. And again, very pleased that after 4 meetings, we received their unanimous recommendation of approval. I'm going to turn it over to Mike to talk a little bit about where we are in the architecture.
Thank you, Mark. Good evening. My name is Mike Durellen. I'm the principal at Fitzgerald Associates Architects. Happy to be here tonight to talk about 4600 Main Street. This is our final design site plan. This design includes 68 townhomes, a mix of 2 and 3 bedroom townhomes that allow for different demographics to live here, as it will create both 2 and 3 bedroom type townhouse apartments. There's 2 electric vehicle charging stations in the visitor parking area, in addition to being EV charging ready inside each of the townhomes. There's 3 different open spaces. There's pervious pavement that Mark alluded to that's indicated in the light brown that helps with stormwater management. It helps us meet our 65% impervious requirement. We're using native plants, and we have 22 guest parking spaces, the required amount, in addition to 2 car parking for every townhouse inside each of those townhouses. A sustainable future focuses our design. That's how we think about the work that we do, in creating healthy planets, thriving communities, and nourishing the residents' well-being. These are all important to creating an integrated, thorough design approach, and it's not something that we consider after the fact. Townhouses are great, versatile housing. They offer many different types of ways to live in them, and most importantly, they provide a place of privacy and security since they're single unit occupied units. They offer that, plus the other benefits of living in what could be conceived as a single-family home type living without the burdens of ownership, since this will be a rental community. As you can see in our site plan, Main Street is at the bottom, Kilpatrick and Kenton. We have 2 driveways off of each side street, internal circulation throughout the site that serves the rear garages of all of the townhomes, plus pedestrian pathways for visitors and guests to get to the front door of all of the units, whether walking up on Main Street or circulating through the site. There's 3 open spaces. One in the center that Mark mentioned is where we removed the clubhouse, plus small pocket parks both on Kilpatrick and Kenton. We've pulled our townhouses away from the north property line and created a landscape buffer full of trees and new fences that will run the entire length of the north property line. Architecture. It's art is in the eye of the beholder. This is sort of a classic architectural design debate. Should it be contextual, or should it challenge us to something new? In this case, we chose to integrate within the community's context in the architecture rather than landing what could be perceived of as a spaceship in your neighborhood. It's not an easy choice, but one that's really one of trying to fit in and be accepted. Architecture always evokes emotion. It is one of those things that is an art that's in the eye of the beholder. We've brought all of our materials here. They're laid out on the table, and I can describe where each one of them is. We're using clay brick, stone, cement panels, metal siding, as well as some cast stone there. And so where you can see that on each of these, actually, do this. The red face brick that you see on the table is the majority of the red face brick. The light face brick that shows here is the light colored face brick that's actually a tan iron spot. It's got a nice rich texture to it with the iron markings that come through when the clay is fired. All of these sit on a base of stone, which is the larger rough cut sample that's at the bottom closest to you. And then the dark brick that's in the middle of those two is used in certain places to create some highlights between some of the windows in various spots along the elevation. The light colored fiber panel, the sort of finished material that's on the far right board, that is a piece of spandrel material that will go between the windows in some of these locations, like here in the red townhouses. The windows are all fiberglass, which are very thermally insulated, high-performing windows with low E glass. The dark metal and the dark stone are used as accents to mark our canopies, the tops of some of the windows, as well as the tops of all the townhouses, to create a composition that reflects the mid-century modern vernacular that is found throughout your community, and it helps to bring this building and put its place on Main Street. Sustainability means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. You can ask, what does sustainability mean to everyone here? And we'll get twice the number of answers that are in the people in the room. But we believe a sustainable future is focused on building performance, the occupant's health, the community's wellness, and leadership to achieve all of these goals that benefit the individual that resides there, the building itself, to give it longevity, and the community as a whole. It's an integrated design approach in our firm. It's not an afterthought. Our focus starts with building performance. It starts with the Green Globe's building performance metrics, which Barry had actually talked to us about before we ever started planning any of the residential communities here that Mark has described earlier. Green Globes is a program that helps us verify during construction that the building meets all of the design intent and performance requirements that we seek to achieve. Those can be code-related requirements based on the International Energy Code. They can be things that we're targeting for reductions in emissions, as well as reductions in water usage. These buildings will use 100% electric residential appliances and have hybrid systems for both heating and domestic hot water. There will be EV charging readiness in all of the townhomes, as I mentioned, and the roofs will be designed to hold PV panels in the future. We will be meeting the highest international energy conservation code requirements that will kick into effect on January 1 in the state of Illinois. Principles of Fitwell, the healthy lifestyle design program, guides us as well. Directs us to use native plants, low VOC materials to create healthy environments indoors, inside the apartments, and use high quality filters in all of our heating and cooling systems to bring out particulates in the air. All of these specific items and the strategies that you see here are things that are integrated into our design, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Yep.
Just gonna finish up with a couple of quick slides and a summary on this. But the first is, as I mentioned, one of the concerns raised was on traffic. In addition to all the site plan changes we made to do that, we went back, the village staff reviewed, KLOA reviewed, we looked at it based on your codes, based on national codes. We meet and exceed all of those codes of the project, 158 total parking spaces. Probably the most significant item out there on this area is that current use has 435 trips in the peak morning hour. The new use is 30 trips in the peak morning hour. It's pretty easy for us to show a reduced impact as a result of that. No surprise by the current trips, it's a school, so it's supposed to be. But this will be a significant reduction of that. We also discovered as part of this, a lot of concerns on parking is that Many of our neighbors, the multifamily neighbors in particular, and townhome neighbors in that area, have one car per unit. One parking spot per unit. So therefore, they're used to having that level of concern. This project, as required by your current codes, has 2 cars for each of those units. Zoning, talked about this a lot, but townhomes act as a transition between multifamily, you know that. You can already see it in the design of so many areas in Skokie, including adjacent properties near us, where those townhomes act as that transition. And I talked before about the restriction on the uses for the R1 portion. And just real quick on this, just to get a real sense of the difference, just looking at where we were, and again, remembering, we submitted that with looking at your codes, et cetera, what we could have submitted for on this, 158 units, it's what we did submit for, 158 units, 40.3 units per acre, 5-story multifamily apartments at 60 feet, and our final proposal of 68 units, 17.3 units per acre, and only townhomes at 32 feet. That's a 57% reduction in units in density. And again, very unique and something we're proud of and we believe is why we've gotten the level of support we have. I've already talked about all the meetings, I'm not gonna repeat that, but it is important is how we got here. It's the willingness of both the seller and a developer to expend the time, money, and efforts to do that. The changes in townhome elevations, as the Appearance Commission pushes for, to bring in all the stone, all the brick, et cetera, that are there. This is a truly high-quality addition that we believe will benefit the village, the community, and the new residents in Skokie who will call this home. And again, as a result, unanimously supported by your Plan Commission and the Appearance Commission. I want to close up. One of the issues that we had early on was some concerns about neighborhood. What will this really look like? There was a video done by some of the neighbors, but without the sort of technology and time and money that we spent by the architects. So our architectural team literally went out, counted every tree in the area to create this to give you a good sense. I do want to tell you, this is, because we don't want to present new evidence, this is what was submitted to Plan Commission. Therefore, some of the final changes are not on this. As an example, you can see that in the middle there, you still have the clubhouse. But for the purposes of this meeting, it gives you a really good sense of what's there.
This will move very quickly. It is annotated at the bottom as to where you're looking, so I'm not going to try and keep up with that. I'll let you read along and I'll try to describe where you're starting. So we're starting at an aerial, and then we're going to drop in on Main Street and move from west to east. And as Mark said, this was what was presented to Plan Commission, which is why the architecture of the townhomes is slightly different than what we showed you earlier. The trees that we're moving through outside of the properties, the subject property, are all the ones that we documented as existing. This is one of the two pocket parks on the two side streets in Kilpatrick and Kenton. the clubhouse that's been removed. That's now all open green space. The guest parking is shown still remains. The wood fence enclosures are for trash.
With that, we will close our presentation. We're of course available for any questions you may have. Appreciate the opportunity. If there are questions or comments from the community, to be able to come back up and respond to those whenever you'd like us to do so.
Okay, now, ladies and gentlemen, this is a matter of public policy. This is not a sporting event. No booing, no applauding. We all want to be heard and have an opportunity to express ourselves, so please no outbursts. Let's go this way and then we'll wrap around. Any comments or questions?
I just had a couple of questions. This is probably better for Ms. Knight. Just curious to know, what's the current housing stock for townhomes in the village? Do we know?
What's allowed under R4, or
Just kind of what do we have, like in our current housing stock?
I couldn't give you a number count, but we have a variety of townhomes that are closer to our downtown, live work style, or we have even more dense things that you might find along Church Street, or one that comes to mind is near Village Crossing. There's some townhome developments there, so they're smattered around. It's a nice way for people to live. Maybe might want a community, but they want more of a single family home read. You have front doors, back doors that open to the outside. So as a older inner ring suburb, that's a style of housing that was popular at various points in the past 50 to 100 years.
Thanks.
Trustee Sucker?
And the 3 stories that it is now is comparable to the other townhomes in that neighborhood, correct? Like the ones across the street, are they 3 stories?
Yes. I mean, they're 3 stories. There's a little bit different in height, but they're generally, yes. They're to the block south. There's also taller multifamily buildings in the block south of there. So the general neighborhood.
Okay.
In further R4 neighborhoods.
And then I had a question about, I don't know who this would go to, about the deed with the approved change. How does that work?
I actually do a lot of deed restriction work, but we would submit a deed restriction, and we call it generically deed restriction. It doesn't have to be on the deed we buy the property from. It's just a restriction that would be recorded against the property that would identify that have a legal description of the former R1 property, would identify that the following uses, which are identified in your R4, are not permitted on here. Luke went through them, but it's multifamily, it's standalone parking, and senior housing. There's a 4th, but again, whatever those 4 are. And you'd record a restriction that says those are not allowed in this property. The village would be the beneficiary of that restriction, so the property owner couldn't just change it. And obviously, we'd submit it to your staff and your corporation counsel to review and approve it before it's recorded.
Okay, thank you.
And by the way, I would assume that you would make that a condition of approval, and probably require it as a condition prior to occupancy or building permit, whichever you'd like to do.
Thank you.
Trustee Kuhn?
Hi, I'm not sure you can hear me. I'd like to go back and understand, I recognize that we don't have an inclusionary housing ordinance policy in place today, that you are putting money forth that would allow us to have fee in lieu. What was the thought process in terms of whether or not the property would have on-site affordable housing or offer that fee in lieu?
Honestly, it was in discussion with the community and looking at the project. At the time, you were looking at an ordinance that provided that option for projects of this size to make the payment. And we chose to make that payment. That was back when we actually thought that, or it wouldn't have applied to us because we were in before then, but we were voluntarily offering to make that. And it was one of the options you had in your ordinance, so we used it.
And with the original proposal, was the intent always to make this luxury development
Yes.
for all of the units?
Yeah, I think we identified somewhere in the high $3,000 to $4,000 a month rent on these. Would have been a different development, obviously, if we had built 5 stories of multifamily apartments, a different number, but once you switch to townhomes and the level of quality the community wants to see, that's really where you end up.
Okay. And then can you tell me, I know in the summary you have there the current usage as well as the usage for the reduction in traffic. What's the daily, what would have been the difference in terms of daily traffic versus just looking at the morning hour?
Because he was searching through there real quick. I can pull up the traffic report. It was significant. Admittedly, the one I identified because the morning is the heaviest, but it was multiple hundreds of percent in reduction in traffic. Again, Louis Abunal with Callaway, our traffic engineer.
Good evening. From a daily traffic standpoint, the proposed development will generate about 468 trips in and out, compared to over 1,300 for the school. So significant reduction.
Thank you. I missed the video where you point out the guest parking. Do you mind just pointing it out to me on the?
All of the guest parking's in 4 different locations. At the ends, next to the 2 pocket parks inside the site, and then surrounding what was the clubhouse in the center of the site.
And then, in terms of the open space, I know there's the pocket park right there in the corner and the open green space. Is there going to be any additional amenities on top of that space, or just going to be an open space for the time being?
For right now, it's programmed as open space. We haven't, and we'll get to a point where we design each of the parks.
Okay.
They're intended to be passive.
Okay.
And one of the changes based on meetings with the community was originally those were fenced off to really only be accessible by the development. A number of people in the community asked if we could make those open, so we moved the fence to the inside so that it's there.
Okay.
Comments,
I think that's all I have for
questions?
now. Sorry.
Excuse me?
No, I think that's all I have for now. Thank you.
This is more of a comment than a question. Colleagues, you all know that I've been really historically reluctant to support projects that don't have on-site affordable units. And we have just finished a year-long affordable housing study. This project, by my estimations, may be the most unaffordable residential development that has been proposed to us this term. From my understanding, the minimum rent for a 2-bedroom unit in this development would be upwards of $3,700 a month. That is roughly 3 times the median rent of Skokie. And keep in mind that our affordable housing study this year has shown that a majority of Skokie residents are already housing cost burdened. So I think the lack of on-site affordable units in this project is problematic. That's my comment.
Trustee Prisloven.
You keep referring to a fence, and I'm not exactly sure where we're fencing in the property. I haven't been able to ascertain that.
Where's the mouse? There it is. This sort of reddish line that runs along the black line here at the north face.
Okay.
That's the north. The dark line is the north property line. The brown line is supposed to represent the fence. It's somewhat hard to see. You could see it in the video. It will run the entire length of the north property line.
And what about the east and the west?
No fences.
No fence, and obviously not in the front where I saw the pretty grass and planting, and then there's still parking spaces available on Main Street?
Absolutely. We did not touch those. There's an existing bike lane there as well that remains.
Well, you couldn't, right, okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Just, I can't tell what trustee Klein.
Okay. When I look at these projects, there's certain things that I look at, as you know. One of the things I look at is the parking. Can't fight it here. Look at the density. The setback. And they've already decided to contribute to the fund for affordable housing. So I really have nothing to add or ask.
Is there anybody who would like to comment from?
Actually, I do want to ask.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're talking about this fund for affordable housing. Given that we did not approve the home renovation grant in November, the program, and that we have not yet established a land trust, how would this $450,000 be used?
Excellent question. I would assume that the board would direct the manager to propose a program for that, and that it would come to the village board for its approval. Or if at some point the board should decide it wants to take up, again, inclusionary zoning, then we could address it at that point. But I think the manager will propose a program for us, and then the board can discuss it and debate it.
Thank you.
Speaking of the inclusionary housing ordinance, I would like to make a motion that we do bring that back to the board, and I think we're in a position to bring that forth at the beginning of the new year. So I would like to request that we bring that back.
Well, do that separately. I
Okay.
mean, we're taking up this project at the moment.
Okay.
But, and, yes.
Later on, I will happily second this motion.
Yeah. Is there anybody who wishes to address the board regarding this project? Yeah, just, please just come up to the microphone and give us your name, please.
My name is Susan Phillips. I live at 4609 Elm Terrace. I'm a 35-year resident of Skokie. I raised my kids here, sent them to
Ma'am,
District 69.
ma'am, could you?
Can't hear me. Oh.
I couldn't get your last name.
Okay,
I'm
sorry. My name is Susan Phillips. I live at 4609 Elm Terrace, which is directly north of the property. I'm a 35-year resident of Skokie. I've raised my kids here, sent them to District 69 and 269 schools. I volunteered in the schools, I regularly donate to the local food pantry, I give yearly gift to Assist Family Program, I volunteered with the Skokie Health Department. And while I've not personally made a donation to the caucus party, I have voted for it across the board in every election since I've lived here. I've loved living in Skokie, so I find it particularly disturbing to find out that I'm not relevant. According to Mr. Berman of the Plan Commission, the concerns of the community are not relevant to the decision of the commission. My concerns and the concerns of the 100-plus signers of the petition in opposition to the proposed construction of 4600 Main are not relevant. Personally, I find that kind of insulting. The only concern of the Plan Commission is that the construction meets village codes based on the interpretation of that code by village staff. Meeting code is important, but just because a proposal checks all the boxes doesn't mean it's right for the neighborhood. The developer and his representatives have laid out all the studies and the plans, but they don't live here. What may be fine in one area is not necessarily right in another. The proposed buildings are out of character with the surrounding area and are way too dense. There's just too much packed into that property. Now, I'm not against developing it. It's a valuable piece of property, and I think it should go back into the tax base for the village. But do it in a way that's attractive and fits in with the neighborhood, and give some space to the potential tenants. The current design has the buildings stacked up so close there's no room to park a car in front of each unit. The roadways between the buildings are 24 feet. That's 2 feet wider than the average two-car garage. A decrease in the overall density would make the development much more appealing and could perhaps also provide additional needed green space. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hi there, Ken Marley, 4651 Elm Terrace. Real quick, just piggybacking onto Sue, she described the petition that committee members had put together. We have 115 signatures of people who are opposed to the current plan. I'll pass this up to the board. And the board is also in possession of a letter written by the community as well, detailing both the code problems with it and the conformity with surrounding, being harmonious with the surrounding area, problems with that. So real quick.
You just give it to Trustee Kuhn, please. Thank you.
All right, so I think a lot of people here are going to talk about personal, emotional problems with the plan as presented. I'm going to raise some code-related concerns with the plan as it's been presented. Is there any way to raise, is that as high as this thing goes?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just going to blast through a couple of these things real quick then. That's the petitioner's statement that we've got, a townhouse development. That's the Plan Commission. Notice to the community. There's a 68 townhouse residence development, and that they're combining 2 lots into 1. That's the Plan Commission report. 68 townhouse residences. The staff recommended the site plan approval for 68 townhouse residences. The Plan Commission recommended approval of those 68 townhouse residences. Finally, as slightly to the side. Going to the definitions of the village code as well. Family is a building containing 2 or more residential units, except townhouses. Townhouses, 2 or more residential units attached side by side. I think we can all agree that yes, we have collections of buildings with 2 or more residences attached side by side. And again, next piece of information there, the Plan Commission voted unanimously to combine those 2 lots into a single lot at 4600. There it is, 1 lot, lot number 1. This is where we start to get into some code issues. The general provisions section of the Skokie Village Code imposes a limit on the number of buildings allowed on a lot. Principal buildings shall be located on a lot except in a planned development. The petitioner has not applied for this as a planned development, so they are in violation on the limit on number of buildings allowed on a lot. 12 is more than 1. What's the big deal with that?
Okay, Mr. Marley,
Yes.
the time limit.
My name is Anita Ross, and I'm at 4554 Main. And I'd like to give my 3 minutes back to Ken.
No, that's not, you can address the board, but we don't shift minutes around like that.
With all due respect, Mr. Mayor, we are trying to...
Joke? You don't know? Seriously? Okay, well, I came across a couple quitclaim deeds that were purchased for $10 back in 30-some years ago.
Sir, your time limit is up.
Yeah, could you answer me about the value of the property? Did these people actually produce it, and now they're going to wind up collecting $4 million or whatever their cut is going to be of this project? Is this sane? Is this fair? I mean, why are we subsidizing this?
we're
And none
not-
of you know the answer.
we're
None, not one
we're
of
not-
you know how much we got from the.
We're not subsidizing it. I don't know what you're,
Well, apparently we just about gave away that valuable land to this school. And now they are selling it
Sir,
for some
sir.
$3 or $4 million.
sir,
Yes.
we did not subsidize anything, okay?
It's an
There's another
and it's an
person.
unjust enrichment.
Okay.
And it's to our detriment. You
Okay.
think moving 200 or 300 people next door to me is going to enhance the value of my property? You must be joking.
Okay, let the next gentleman have his chance.
Thank you for all your answers. I mean, once again, appearing in front of you people, all this entire 10 months has been worthless.
Good evening. My name's Thomas Whitaker. I live at 8424 Kilpatrick Avenue, which is on the west side of the proposed development. Since I'm here and I'm being recorded, I'd like to go on record and state that I feel that the RE Crown School have been good neighbors. They keep the streets clean, they keep the parking lot clear, and they do a good job maintaining the property. We've never had issues with our children being able to play on the green space, which we appreciate. And it being their property, I'm not opposed to them selling it for a redevelopment. Where I stand opposed is the density. We've discussed the dramatic decrease in the density. However, at the first meeting I attended, where the 5-story apartment buildings were proposed, that was essentially a non-starter. So this dramatic decrease in density is from something that was never going to pass anyway, and I think that should be noted. At the beginning of this meeting, we recognized the Niles Food Pantry and all their hard work supporting our community, our neighbors who need assistance. And after doing that, I find it troubling that none of the units in this proposed development are going to be affordable housing. I think that a matter out of 3 or 4 of those units for this entire proposed development is easily doable, and I would strongly encourage that that be taken under consideration. The second point is that the proposed development states that it meets the required parking. I understand there is a requirement for 0.5 spaces, I believe, for a 3-bedroom townhouse. And when I look at the size difference between the 2-bedroom and the 3-bedroom townhomes, it is quite minimal. I have not personally seen a floor plan. However, I did see a floor plan that was submitted by the same developer to Des Plaines for a project that they are working on there. And it appears that if that plan is similar to what they're planning to use here, on the ground floor is what could be considered a 3rd bedroom in these 2-bedroom townhouses, which would then increase the required guest parking, and I think that should be taken into consideration. In regards to the traffic study, at an earlier meeting I attended, the traffic study, I believed, was conducted on a Wednesday morning during regular school hours, and my neighbors at this school are only in school session 9 months a year. In addition, they are not there on weekends, and they have religious observances where they are not present at the school. So my concern is with the sustained amount of traffic that 68 townhouses would bring with their guests. I think that would be all day long when you consider Amazon deliveries, UPS, Grubhub, you name it. I think that sustained traffic all day long would significantly increase in the neighborhood.
Thank you, Mr. Whitaker.
And
The next person.
I'm sorry, one final point is that with this being zoned on one lot, all the townhouses facing Kilpatrick are technically a Main Street address, and they are not 25 feet back from Kilpatrick. They're only 21 feet, which to me, when your front door is on Kilpatrick, you're my neighbor on Kilpatrick, and that should be 25 feet back. Thank you for my time.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Howard Sproul. I live at 8649 Niles Center Road. I'm pretty much catty corner from the Luz Associates development that'll be going there. They're also part of this project here. And I'd just like to say I welcome them to the neighborhood, honestly. I'm happy to see their confidence in our community to spend money here and provide more housing for people, whether they be, well-heeled or not. I'm happy to see it. I am certain in my area that it will do nothing but add to the value of my townhouse, because there's going to be new people living there, and this is just the one on 8610 is going to be towers, which fine, more the merrier. And I just am happy to see them and welcome them to Skokie.
Thank you, Mr. Sproul.
Hi, Rachel Van Hoos. I'm of the unpopular opinion that this was state and educational land that was sold to a private school. It hasn't, there's been talk in many of these meetings, if you've been paying attention, about how the land needs to get back on the tax rolls. This is land that's never paid taxes, so. But this development likely will get developed. And I would hope, I feel like, the board isn't prepared either. If you don't know the history of the kind of the discussions that we've had in zonings and appearance meetings, simple things like where is the fence? If you don't know that it's to the north and it's for the residents of Elm Terrace with the single family homes, you have not spent enough time looking at this plan. Obviously, the concerns about affordability and the financial ability of the developer to pull this off. And we're talking about the specific three parts, these plan commissions, right? I'm not going to talk about every development in Skokie that we've had recently, but they're all fallen through the cracks, financially speaking. And when our developer has $1.4 million in federal and state tax liens, I don't know if you have not, how is this partnership even going? Like, it's sad that we've spiraled so far for so many months to the bottom of this like sad drain. I can't. But I do, if it is approved, I hope and I want for it to be built. But please ask yourself those questions and maybe think about punting this and not just green lighting it on this meeting right before a holiday. Thank you.
Often drives these things. And the R4 townhouse construction zoning limit is 68. They magically appeared at 68 because they are maximizing what they can for value. That's fine. It's a business. I get it. But if you as Mr. Robinson asked about other townhome developments in Skokie, none of them are over 12 units in acre in density. The max is 11.9, Lincoln Ridge at Skokie to Lincoln. It's in an R4 district. It's 12 units. We have 4 acres. It would be 48 units. Obviously, that makes it very hard to make a financially viable product. But that is the basically the model of what Skokie has right now. So it's against the model, and it just happened to maximize the density based on what the zoning says. So the community engagement theater that I mentioned was just that all of these zoning, density, all these decisions were brought up by the community, but they were never actually referenced to the community. They were then went to closed-door meetings with the Plan Commission to generate all of these things, to get all the way down to an all-townhome development without any consultation with the community. The community wasn't against multifamily. The community was against this just absolute, all of the negotiations happening behind closed doors, and then us being told things at these 3 community meetings, being told what we can and can't comment on. We were restricted to commenting on the colors of the building, of which all of our comments were then disregarded by the Appearance Commission. So I just want to again say I oppose this development.
Hello, my name is Daniel Garden, and I'm a Skokie business owner, which employs a significant number of employees in the village, and I'm also one of the presidents of RE Crown Hebrew Day School. I respectfully ask the Board of Trustees to vote in favor of approving this project. This project will not just simply check the box of successfully having a property become a taxable asset and be on the tax roll, which is something that is important and something the school committed it would try to do when selling the property. At the same time, this development will also be beneficial and an improvement for the community as a whole. There are many Skokie-based businesses, including my own, whose companies can benefit from a project such as this one in front of you this evening. Brand new, attractive rental properties can appeal to new employees and bring them to the village in a time when many companies are having issues with staffing, especially healthcare providers as the company I represent, where there is a significant shortage of nurses and other essential employees. There will hopefully be a boost for our local businesses and the community as a whole. I also stand here representing hundreds of parents and supporters of the school, many of whom are here today, who, in one way or the other, are tied to the very fabric and woven into the fabric of Skokie. And they have been for many, many decades. We are all very strongly in favor of the project being approved and hope to see those results tonight. Thank you for your time, not only for this evening and for this project specifically, but for your constant efforts and your time commitment on behalf of the entire village of Skokie.
Good evening. Thank you to the mayor and the board members for your time and listening to the merits of this case. Without restating all the specific aspects of this petition.
Sir, may we have your name?
Oh, I'm sorry, Brian Levinson, I'm about to say, I'm sorry. I would simply like to make a simple statement on behalf of RE Crown Hebrew Day School. My name is Brian Levinson. I'm a member of the executive board of RE Crown Hebrew Day School. I've appeared before this board several times on behalf of various civic and educational-based projects that have all had a significant positive impact on the village. I'm a board member of a number of Skokie-based not-for-profit organizations, a member of the Skokie Economic Development Commission, and hold dearly the best interest of the village as a whole. I am joined tonight by a room full of fellow RE Crown parents, faculty, and supporters. RE Crown has been a valued member of the Skokie community for decades. Our families and close to 800 students include Skokie residents, Skokie business owners, and Skokie civic leaders. RE Crown has been located in Skokie for close to 50 years. As this board is aware, RE Crown has embarked on the redevelopment of a new school campus so we can be part of the Skokie fabric for the next 50 years. In the multi-year search for a new larger campus, it was our primary goal to keep the school in Skokie as a valued community asset. That process included working with village staff as well as this board to ensure that the existing campus on Main Street be redeveloped for a use that places the property on the tax rolls, while at the same time being redeveloped in a way that enhances the village. We have worked with the developer to do just that. If the board votes against approval of the redevelopment plan, the property will be tainted for development, and finding a developer willing to purchase the property will be very difficult. RE Crown, as a property owner in the community, should be afforded all the rights that are available to them to realize the best and highest use of their property. The developers worked diligently with both the village staff and the neighbors to adapt the proposed plan to accommodate many of the requests presented by the opposition. Due to those accommodations, RE Crown has had to reduce the sales price of the property considerably to allow the economics of this development to work. We, the families and supporters of RE Crown, implore the members of the board to vote in support of this project consistent with the village staff recommendation. This support will strengthen Skokie through increased quality housing stock, positive economic impact, as well as supporting the educational needs of our children. In addition, this project enhances the Main Street redevelopment plan being worked on by the village. Approval of this project is good for the neighborhood, the village, and the continued role that RE Crown Hebrew Day School plays in Skokie. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Good evening to the members of the board and to the mayor. My name is Jack Goldberg. I live on Elm Terrace. We moved to Elm Terrace in 1977 when this school was a public school. After the public school closed because of lack of students to fill it, It was empty for a while, then it was rented out to the Futabaki School, the Japanese school, who were ideal tenants, very, very nice people, and they kept the property really in immaculate condition. When they left, Ari Crown bought the property and has been there ever since. We were hoping, when Ari Crown bought this property, that many of the parents that you see around here would actually move close to Ari Crown School. Never happened. How many of you who are Ari Crown parents, etc., live within 500 yards of that school? Probably none of you. It was a really shock to us to see this development. The 5-story building was, as it was said before, a non-starter. This development reminds me of the Pete Seeger song from 1963, if you remember that. Little boxes, all made out of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same. This really is an inappropriate development for our neighborhood. We would rather see it developed into much more appropriate lower density housing. We are really afraid of this high density housing for winter, when it's the street parking, and where are all the people going to park? Because you know that yes, they all have 2-car garages, but a lot of people will park on the streets, and it's going to be terrible when it comes to the alternate parking situation during the winter. The other big problem that we see based on the density here is the rat problem. We all know that the garbage collection is going to be outside there, and right now we have a small rat problem, perhaps not so small in Skokie. I just see that this type of density of population with the amount of garbage produced by that is going to create real problems for our neighborhood. And I would ask the members of this board to really reconsider whether this is going to be an ideal project for this neighborhood. We, my wife and I, are really against it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rose Bloomstein. I live at 4727 Bobolink, and I am totally opposed to this development. It is too dense. It does not fit in our neighborhood, and I wish that the people who are investing in this lived in the neighborhood and had to deal with the increase in traffic and density that we will as people who have invested in this neighborhood and live here presently. Thank you.
Hate talking in front of people. So, yes, I'm definitely against it. It's too many people in one spot, and I think
Your name, please?
Shirley Trissel. I live on Main Street in the 2-story townhouses that are 2 stories. If you just take a walk down that 4600, even a walk down Main Street, you can see that what's planned is not in sync with the rest of the neighborhood. All the other sides, yes, there are tall buildings, there are big apartments, but there's huge large yards between them. There's lots of green space, and if you look on the other side, I don't remember the street, but the south side of Maine, there's a beautiful little park that takes up half a block. Why can't you could make half a block out of the park, or park out of the half of the block? And the traffic issue is like, it's unimaginable, because the one-way street, Elm Terrace, what is it, Bobolink? Yeah. It makes it impossible to get out. I live on the Kirkpatrick side. I don't have a parking spot because there's high wires. And anyway, half the time the trash people don't empty it properly, so I've had a flat tire. And I have time-related work schedule, so I can't be late, so I park on the street. A lot of times I park 2 blocks away and I have to carry my groceries through the snow and stuff just because the parking's filled up. And this is not when the school's in session. This is other times in the summer. My car gets run into sometimes because there's parties and block parties and stuff. So even more people would make that really difficult to live with. So anyway, I'm against it.
Good evening. I'm Emi Yamauchi. I'm a resident of Skokie. I am not directly affected by this particular development. However, I do certainly support what my neighbors on Main Street are saying. But on a larger playing field, I also wanted to note, as a couple of people did before me, that the irony of praising of how big and expansive and active the Niles Food Pantry is just symbolic of the fact that we've clearly got an affordable housing problem. People who cannot afford to buy food at the grocery store at regular prices are probably doing in that situation because they are paying more than the 33% that's considered reasonable to not be overburdened by your housing costs. So I hope we're aware of that irony, that as much as we're praising the Niles Food Pantry, it is emblematic of a larger problem in our community. Secondly, the lawyer for this particular development stated that because there was no inclusionary zoning ordinance, they chose to make their payments of fee in lieu of $150,000. For anybody who's on the affordable housing side of things, $150,000, whether it's for a studio that could be affordable housing or a 3-bedroom townhouse that could be affordable housing, it's ludicrous to have one fee because it is not one size fits all. And for the person who thinks that a healthcare worker can afford a $3,700 a month rent, I do not know of any healthcare worker who is making that kind of money, unless that $3,700 is more than 33% of their annual salary. Lastly, well, maybe not quite lastly, but I find it also very disheartening that you would let the developer speak for as long as he wants, including reviewing all of these things that we have heard at previous meetings, and yet the man who's clearly representing more than 100 of his neighbors, he gets cut off and he's told, you don't want to hear a review of his points. He is, after all, a taxpayer here, a current taxpayer here, and the other 100 people who signed the petition are current taxpayers here. Last but not least, I hope you realize that what you are doing by making fee in lieu so easy as a buyout for on-site affordable housing is you are laying the groundwork for economic segregation in Skokie, and you are going to be separating permanently the haves from the have-nots, because in the words of the lawyer for this development, their original goal was always to have a luxury development. And what the village does is it just gives them the easy way out at a flat fee that makes no distinction between a studio or a 3-bedroom unit. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kimberly Polka. I live in Skokie. You have the pleasure of seeing me tonight because your live stream died. Speaker before me covered the two things I wanted to say, but it seems that the mayor prefers for people to repeat themselves. I find it ludicrous. This is not the first time that it has happened. When somebody has done the legwork, they are a specific stakeholder, that they are not allowed to combine their time when the developer, and it's been said by Chairman Luke, it's been said before, the developer has paid a permit fee. As was previously stated before me, we pay fees every single day. We should have a voice, and if 100 people in a neighborhood want to let one man speak for their 3 minutes, they should be able to let him speak for their 3 minutes. He put together a presentation that was right when the live stream died. I am all for transparency in government. What are you afraid of? Why do you not let the people speak? The second thing is, I think that this has shown the lawyer for the developer was asked why he was doing the fee in lieu. This has been discussed in our affordable housing meetings here, that people would buy their way out. And he said tonight that they chose fee in lieu when they thought both were going to be on the table, and they really didn't have to do either because they were here before anything was coming. They chose fee in lieu. So please keep that in mind when I hope affordable housing comes back, that he just proved the point that people will choose fee in lieu. And like was just said before me, it is going to cause a divide. And it is not going to create affordable housing in the spirit of what we're trying to do.
I might point out that,
I don't need to.
I'm not talking to you. The question of affordable housing has come up. We were informed today that actually the amount of affordable housing in the village of Skokie has gone up, has not gone down, it's gone up from 19.7 to 21.2%. That is significant. So to say that this project or any project is going to diminish affordable housing just simply is not verifiable by the facts. And that's not me, that's the Illinois Housing Development Authority.
You're twisting what I said. If you want to have a conversation,
I'm not trying to.
I'm sorry, would it be possible to ask for the source of that? Because simply saying the amount has gone up to
Gail
21.2%.
Gail Schechter.
Okay, but where are the figures saying how many people are in need of it? Because if the Niles Food Pantry is giving out a gazillion pounds of canned goods and whatever, clearly the demand for affordable housing has gone up. So that figure.
In the township.
Okay.
Township. The
Well,
township
he
isn't
kept
just Skokie.
He kept referring to the village when he was
I
speaking. When
understand.
Mr. Collins was speaking, he was referring to the village, not to the township. So until you can show how that figure of 21.2% relates to the actual demand and need in Skokie, in spite of the fact it comes from Gail Schechter, which makes me believe the figure is accurate, it doesn't give the full picture. Thank you.
A motion is in order on.
Mayor, I'd like to make a statement before you vote.
Okay.
I'd like to, at this time, say that the Plan Commission has never held a closed-door meeting with this petitioner or any other petitioner in the past since I've been chairman. That would be a violation of the Open Meetings Act, and it would be illegal. So I don't know where you got your information, but it is wrong. Thank you.
Mr. Gershon, briefly.
Very briefly, I just wanted, I'm not going to make any arguments, just correct a few misunderstandings here. But a few comments that this property was sold for $10. Illinois has what's called nominal consideration laws and deeds. My deed says I paid $1 for my house, okay? Because that's what what you're required to do in Illinois for nominal consideration. I promise you I didn't pay $1. Eric Collins asked me not to say how much. I can tell you they paid millions of dollars for this property. So I wanted to make sure that that was cleared up. Luke's already cleared up one of the ones I absolutely wanted to make sure was said. On the density, again, discussed heavily at Plan Commission, we are at 17.3 units per acre. The other multifamily and townhomes surrounding our property are at 50 or more units per acre. And the other one, just because I hate being in a meeting where someone's professionalism is questioned and they're personally attacked. My client, as everyone has the right to do, had a project where the IRS identified what they thought were the capital gains of the project. My client took advantage of the rights under the law to work with them on those numbers, as the IRS does as part of their procedures. They filed liens during that. The IRS agreed to a settlement at my client's amount. The IRS, of course, would never acknowledge whether or not they thought he was right or not, but they agreed to his amount. He did the right business decision there to do it. All of those liens are part of that settlement. I have a lot more to say, obviously, but most of these comments have all been on the record. The only other one I would say is that throughout this process, your staff is authorized by your codes to interpret the code. We have worked with them. Every project we've done has met those codes. Every project we proposed has met those codes. They have confirmed it each time. And again, I just want to end with, this isn't a project where we're ever going to make everyone happy. We all know that. But I think that it is very clear the efforts that both this property owner and this developer have gone to reduce the impact of this project in height and in density, and we sincerely request your approval. Thank you very much.
Thank you. First item is Plan Commission Case 2023-15P, zoning map amendment 4600 Main Street. A motion is in order. Trustee Klein, seconded by Trustee Pierre Slovan. Sure.
This is kind of awkward, but I wanted to ask about potential conflicts of interest. Mr. Gershon, the spokesperson for the developer, has made political campaign contributions to every member of this board except for me. Mr. Gershon co-sponsored a political fundraiser for members of this board and co-sponsored alongside 3 members of this board and 2 members of our legal department. So I would like to ask, do any members of the board need to recuse themselves from this vote due to receiving political campaign donations from the developers? Do any of this,
No.
any members of this board need to recuse themselves due to co-sponsoring a political fundraiser with the developers? All right. For whatever it's worth, I find it incredibly uncomfortable to know that there are political fundraisers in Skokie that are being hosted by developers, members of this board, and members of our legal department. That, to me, is incredibly problematic. I will say that.
Okay. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Sutker.
Aye.
Trustee Robinson.
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn.
Aye.
Trustee Johnson.
I'm voting nay, and my number one reason is for the complete lack of affordable housing in this development. I really think that this development is a perfect example of why we need an inclusionary housing ordinance in Skokie.
Trustee Pure Slovin.
Aye.
Trustee Klein. Mayor Wenduson.
Aye, the motion passes. Next is Plan Commission Case 2023-16P, subdivision 4600 Main Street. A motion is in order. Trustee Sucker, seconded by Trustee Kuhn. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Sutker.
Aye.
Trustee Robinson.
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn.
Aye.
Trustee Johnson. Trustee Pure Slovin.
Aye.
Trustee Klein.
Aye.
Mayor Wenduson.
Aye, the motion passes. And finally, Plan Commission Case 2023-17P, site plan approval, 4600 Main Street. A motion, Trustee Klein, seconded by Trustee Kuhn. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Sutker.
Aye.
Trustee Robinson.
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn.
Aye.
Trustee Johnson.
Nay.
Trustee Pure Slovin.
Aye.
Trustee Klein.
Aye.
Mayor Wenduson.
Aye, the motion passes.
That concludes my report.
Thank
Wish
you.
you all a happy holiday and a happy new year.
Happy holiday, Happy New Year. Let's take a 5-minute recess.
Testing, testing, testing.
The meeting will reconvene. Next item on our agenda is report of our village manager, John Lockerbie.
Thank you, Mayor Van Duzen and trustees. Good evening, everyone. Item A under my report was approved as part of tonight's consent agenda, and that completes my report this evening.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is report of our corporation counsel, Michael Lorge.
Thank you, Mayor, trustees. Good evening, everyone, as the hour wanes. Item A on my agenda for this evening was part of the consent agenda and was approved at that time. Item B is an ordinance on the agenda for first reading tonight. This ordinance shall establish the compensation for the village manager, deputy village clerk, corporation counsel, and assistant corporation counsels for FY 2024. Pursuant to Chapter 2, Article 3 of the Skokie Village Code. The ordinance is consistent with the Mayor and Board of Trustees' directions during the budget planning for the year 2024 village budget. It includes a cost of living increase only, except in one position it has a salary adjustment to achieve salary parity. Mayor, this will return to the board on January 2nd, 2024.
Thank you. Yes, Trustee Johnson. No, it comes back January 2nd.
Not yet done our performance reviews of our village manager and village corporation council. From my understanding, historically, this has always been our process to do performance reviews first. So I guess why are we not doing performance reviews before this ordinance?
We will be doing one when the budget comes up, which will be March or April. So we will be doing a performance review at that point.
Have we, as this
And
board?
this is simply to establish the salaries. It's basically, except for the one position which has an adjustment, is simply the salary plus the COLA. That's it, nothing else.
Colleagues, I'm going to make a motion. I move that we table this ordinance until we have conducted our annual performance reviews of our village manager and corporation council, just as the village board has always done in the past.
Motion dies for lack of a second.
I think it is so telling that this board is unwilling to do a performance review of our corporation council at this moment. Colleagues, I have some comments that I want to make. I know we're not voting on this tonight, but I have some very serious comments. Colleagues, there are so many reasons why we should not be continuing the employment of some of our corporation councils. I'm going to give my top 3 reasons why the 6 of you should absolutely not vote on this ordinance. Number 1, first and foremost, you should not vote for this ordinance because of your conflicts of interest with members of our legal department. Colleagues, you cannot vote on the public employment and compensation of individuals that you have such overt personal and political connections with. Corporation Counsel Lorge and Assistant Corporation Counsel McCarthy have repeatedly made donations to your political campaigns. They have solicited donations to your political campaigns. They have sponsored fundraisers for your political campaigns. They have participated in your vetting and selection as candidates for office. They have collected signatures and managed your petitions to get you on the ballot. They have volunteered and organized volunteers at polling locations to canvass for you. When they began their village employment, they were the literal chair and vice chair of your local political party. If you vote to approve this ordinance, you will be voting for political hiring. You will be steering roughly $400,000 of public money to your own political party and political campaign leaders. Number 2, none of you should vote on this ordinance because of the overt misconduct in our legal department, especially the misconduct involving candidate and voter suppression. All of you are aware that members of this board, including Mayor Van Duzen and Trustee Klein, sent Corporation Counsels Lorge and McCarthy to personally attempt to bribe and threaten me when I was an independent candidate for office. All of you.
Did I say that right? Did I send him to you?
All of you are aware that this has happened to other local candidates as well. All of you are aware that last year Mayor Van Dusen collaborated with Lords and McCarthy to attempt to block an entire voter-initiated referendum campaign from the ballot. All of you are aware that members of this board have misappropriated the services of village attorneys for political purposes. If you reward these attorneys with continued employment and pay increases, you will be actively covering up misconduct in our legal department. Third, you should not vote for this ordinance because we are absolutely not getting the village services that we need from our current corporation councils. Our politicized legal department often fails to give us the legal advice that we actually need. We have been investigated by the Attorney General's office repeatedly because of our open meetings violations, and our village attorneys have either defended our unlawful practices or they have remained silent. We have had to spend tens of thousands of dollars on outside attorneys because of conflicts of interest with our in-house attorneys. In response to the voter-initiated electoral reform campaign last year, some of our village attorneys openly spread misinformation about village elections and the village's electoral system. And there is a widespread and fair perception in our community that our legal department serves political interests over the interests of the community as a whole. This perception is accurate. In summary, no one on this board should be voting on this ordinance, as is there are major conflicts of interest between this board and our legal department. There has been major misconduct involving our legal department, and our village attorneys have often failed to provide us with adequate legal services. No one who cares about the institutional integrity of our village government would support our village legal department as is. Colleagues, how many of you will be recusing yourselves from this vote due to your conflicts of interest with members of our legal department?
There are no conflicts of interest.
I'm so confused. Doesn't make a difference if I'm a registered Republican or Democrat in the state, so it's irrelevant. But state representatives, state senators, the treasurer, the governor always solicits from me, a donation. I'm so angry I can't think. Donation. I sign petitions. It is within our legal democratic right to be supportive of candidates. And as far as I understand it, the attorneys for the village are still residents, so they can support outside of the office any candidate they want, whether it's Alliance, Caucus, Republican, Democrat. I don't care what party you identify to. It is allowed within this party. So that you're saying that the petition I signed yesterday by someone from the state is illegal based on that. I do business with them as a trustee. I do business with them as a lobbyist in Springfield because I am a registered lobbyist. But everything is legal, so I don't understand why that changes when we sit at this table.
Trustee Pierce-Lovin, I have shared my personal experience with you of Corporation Councils Lorge and McCarthy personally trying to bribe and threaten me when I was a candidate for office. What are any of you doing to prevent something like this from happening again?
I'm really troubled by the accusation that we are continuing to try to cover misconduct, that the notion that there was any bribery that took place at all, and that is your perception, that was your experience, but this has come up repeatedly. And in my position here as a trustee, I've never used this dais to talk about any affiliation that I've had with the Skokie Caucus Party or use it to pursue any political agenda. And I feel like these attacks that continue to happen is you pursuing your own personal political agenda here.
Trustee Kuhn, you're right that it's kind of a he said with my encounter with Lorge and McCarthy in 2020. What have you done in response to their collaboration with Mayor Van Dusen last year that was very public when the three of them tried to block an entire referendum campaign from access to the ballot? There were over 100 people in this room that witnessed an attempt at voter suppression.
It never went forward.
It-
Voted it down.
It was not any attempt at voter suppression. It was perfectly legal. You had an opportunity, you presented it to the Ethics Commission. They voted unanimously to dismiss the charge because everything that was done legally and was done ethically and within the powers that the mayor has. You might not agree with it, but that, you seem to think because somebody doesn't agree with you on something, that therefore makes it a conflict of interest and raises a question of ethics.
I'm raising the question of...
It raises a question of politics, not a question of ethics.
Let's raise the question of ethics. How long are we going to allow members of our legal department to collaborate in acts of voter and candidate suppression? Are we going to enter the new year perpetuating the misconduct in our legal department, or are we going to end
That's
this now?
your accusation. I don't see where that's happening. That's your lens.
And how long do we subject ourselves to continuing to be called, to be accused of all these things?
I am going to be advocating for a nonpartisan legal department until we have a nonpartisan legal department and members of this board no longer appoint their own campaign leaders to high-paying positions in our legal department. That's when I will stop
Within
advocating
the
for
state
reform.
government, there's not a nonpartisan legal department. Everybody knows if they're Democrats or Republicans or who they're running under. So I don't understand why we have to be different here.
Colleagues.
You have a right to be part of a party. That's the guarantee of the United States of America.
And no one is entitled to engage in acts of voter and candidate suppression while they are being paid public money by the village of Skokie.
Again, that's
your
accusation.
accusation. That's your accusation. We don't see that. You're accusing.
Colleagues, if a single one of you had come to me and said someone on staff had tried to bribe you, you better believe I would believe you, and you better believe I would do something about it.
Trustee Klein.
This keeps growing. It's taking on a life of its own.
It's because of your conflict avoidance.
Oh, I'll say my piece, then we'll go. First, you accuse Mr. Lorch of bribery. Now you accuse the mayor and myself of bribery. And you accuse this board of bribery. Is it Kem? Is it Keith? Edie? Ellison? Are they bribing you too? Oh, no, wait, it's gotta be Promote, you know, because he's so, whatever you call it. So, your story keeps growing by leaps and bounds, and this is the first time you brought me and the mayor into it.
Trustee
So,
Klein.
you brought all of us into it. Are you having trouble keeping your stories in your mind?
No. Do you remember in October 2021, where you informed the entire village board that you knew and supported Corporation Council's Lorge and McCarthy meeting with me and offering me a commission seat to not run for office?
No, you quote properly. I said I know about it, and I said I thought it was a good idea because you know nothing about local government.
May I make a public comment?
Hold on,
Please.
hold on,
Okay, thank you.
hold on.
So
You guys-
your accusations keep growing and they get bigger. But there's
Let's-
nothing behind it.
Let's move on. Everybody has had an opportunity to
Okay.
speak.
Colleagues, at our next meeting, if this vote goes through, I am walking out of this chamber in protest of the blatant political corruption in our legal department. I have spent 3 years trying to reform
You-
this
you're-
corruption.
Trustee, you've had your chance.
All right. At our next meeting, if this board votes to perpetuate the political corruption in our legal department, I'm walking out in protest.
Okay.
Mark my words.
Thank you.
Start now?
Yes, ma'am.
Rachel Van Hoos. I would like to focus on the agenda item, talking about partisan, nonpartisan. This board literally just contradicted its own self, saying it doesn't matter if I'm this or that, and then it says, well, I can be this or that. And please stop comparing us to the state government, and please stop comparing us to to the federal government. This is the local government of the village of Skokie. And sadly, we share a real close border here with Chicago, and the cronyism runs deep. It's deep, okay? Can we just like find a way to get up out of the mire and just work with everybody in the community instead of all this defensiveness? The agenda item, my understanding of it, you said COLA. To me, that sounds like a COLA increase. It doesn't sound like a renewal of a contract. I don't know exactly how each of your contracts work, when they start, when they end. You know, if that is the time, the review process, it happens. But the thing is the constant resistance over and over and over to just revising the village code for the future of all of us citizens so that we can just have a more comprehensive process of selection in the future. You hired a fireman and probably went on for 7 minutes about the great lengths we go to select our firemen, and there's 3 lines of village code about appointing the council. And I'm not accusing anyone of any controversy. I don't understand. Like I said, I believe it's a COLA thing, but this is embarrassing, the debating back and forth. And the actually contradicting yourself with all the Republican, Democrat, this and that, federal, state. Let's think about Skokie. And another thing, a whole room of people left. I don't really think they care about Skokie.
I think they care very much for the village, whether they agree with the vote or not.
I can't let something be set up there and not share what I know. And I am going to go to what Trustee Johnson is referring to as voter suppression. And it's really important that you know that I check the agendas on Thursday to see what's coming up at the next meeting. And my heart stopped. We were planning our petition signature gathering. I was at another volunteer's house and I had seen the agenda. I called a trustee who is up there, texted. I met with the trustee the day of the meeting. The trustee told me that he was completely unaware of where that came from. I don't know if the rest of you knew where those 3 ballot initiatives that the mayor was trying to put on the ballot for the first time in the entire time that he sat up there, with the exception of that weird electric thing that happened in a lot of places. I mean, we hear from you all the time, Mr. Mayor, that you've been in this business for a very long time. And you've never used the ballot to put anything on there, with the exception of that electrical whatever thing. And now all of a sudden, when we're getting close to getting the number of petition signatures, which was very public on social media, this is the first time that the village of Skokie, and I don't think the mayor writes ordinances, so this is not coming out of nowhere. It's not, and it was dropped, if you all remember that day on Juneteenth, when the mayor said that he didn't want to be divisive. But again, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that the first time after being in this business for a very long time, that he is using the ballot to poll the public for non-binding referenda, which I don't know how you would have voted because it never went to a vote. It didn't come through, but it's still, you will never convince me it was not an attempt to block a voter-initiated ballot measure.
I'd just like to encourage the board not to underestimate the intelligence of your constituents and taxpayers. Everybody knows that those 3 village board proposed referendums were ridiculous. Leaf blowing, plastic bags. I mean, why not have the number of minutes you're limited to before you pick up your dog poop? So if you wonder what goes on at these meetings, I signed those petitions, but I didn't realize how bad it was until I actually started attending all of these meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Sucker.
I move we adjourn.
We're adjourned.